bliss and ecstasy.
Yes, why not? It's ecstasy. It's positive feelings. Ecstasy, it's happiness.
Yeah.
See? Ecstasy means, actually, when we experience happiness that apparently has no cause. You know, when we're meditating or something like that, and all of a sudden we get some realization, and we feel this happiness, and it's just like, you know, there's no sense gratification going on, you know, but we feel this wonderful happiness, like, ah. What is that? That's ecstasy. Ecstasy is like a kind of superordinary pleasure. Supernatural. Huh?
Overwhelming.
Yes, it's overwhelming too. It's very intense. It's another thing about ecstasy. But you know, ecstasy has to begin somewhere. Has to start from something. So it can start from the just the perception of the nice sound vibrations, or the, you know, the beautiful rhythms, and like that. And it can go all the way up to Mahabhuta, you know, Maha Prema. You know, this is the secret. You start with something that you can experience on your level. You know, just like we start devotional service by performing different service activities with our material bodily senses. And then we gradually begin to engage the mind, the intelligence, the ego, and then the consciousness directly. And each stage is more pleasant. Each stage is more intense and more satisfying. So similarly, with ecstasy, we can start with something very easily that we can perceive with the senses, like the musical notes. And then gradually we can add the holy name, and like this, you see. Just like when people practice TM, they're not chanting the whole mantra, they're only chanting the seed. Like Om, Kling, Shring, Aing, and like that. But still they're getting transcendental pleasure. Maybe it's not the complete transcendental pleasure of rasa, you see. But it's somewhere. It's somewhere on the scale of transcendental bliss. We don't argue with that. The thing is, there has to be a process, there has to be a way to get from the beginning stage to the highest stage. And that's what's missing in most of these teachings. They're only giving the beginning. They're not giving the step-by-step process all the way up to the highest.
Yeah, they seem to get stuck that many of these musicians, although they can sing very nicely and like that, they spent all their life just doing that same thing, and it's like there comes a point where you can see that they're having this pleasure of the music, but it's kind of they reach a limit.
Yeah, they're coming up against the limit of what that process can deliver.
And because they don't know where to go, they just repeat it. And then
one time Ravi Shankar said, "I try to make every note a cry for God." Well, that's very nice, but then, you know, when does God actually get to respond? See, when do we actually come face to face with God? If we're crying out to God, then God should respond. He should reciprocate, and we should become in a relationship. You see. You know, for example, you know, if I hear somebody going, "Babaji, Babaji," I'm going to go, "What?" Right? So, similarly, if you cry out Krishna's name, Krishna will respond. He's a person. He's sensitive. He has intelligence. He knows what we're doing, what we want. So, when we cry out for him, his holy name, then he responds from within the heart. And this is bliss. This is ecstasy. See? So, if we follow the external practices of Vedic lifestyle, what's a good example? This, what do you call it when you design buildings and the land and stuff like that? Vastu, yeah. If you follow Vastu, by doing vastu and designing your house and your land in terms of vastu, then you'll experience a much nicer life in that house. So many problems will be avoided. So many difficulties will be less, simply by following those instructions. I remember when I was young, I had some medical problems. And somehow I came across a book of Hatha Yoga. And I started doing Hatha Yoga. And just by doing Hatha Yoga for a few weeks, I overcame these medical problems that I had had for years. Just by changing my diet to eliminate meat products and like that, I immediately became much, much healthier. I stopped getting colds and stuff like this. So from the very beginning, if you follow Vedic knowledge, even if you follow externally, you'll get benefits. You don't have to wait for the benefits. The benefits come very quickly. So if that's how Vyasadeva structured the Vedic knowledge. There's a conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva in the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, where Narada comes to Vyasadeva and he says, actually, what you've done is you tricked the people. You gave them material benefits in response to following Vedic knowledge. So actually you're cheating them. This is not very good. Actually, the aim of Vedic knowledge is to engage people in devotional service. So why are you giving them this process of material work, karma kanda? Why don't you just give them the real thing? Well, the reason for that is, in Kali Yuga especially, most people are at that level. Most people are on the material platform. Without getting some material benefits, they would have no way to understand that this knowledge is correct. And the problem, as you've observed, is that they tend to get hung up on that. And then they want only material benefits, and they think that's it, and that's all there is to it. You see? So if someone performs Vedic sacrifices and they get some material benefit, actually the purpose of that is to engage them further and say, well, if you do this process and you get this benefit, well, what if you do a higher process and you get a higher benefit? But because the Vedic knowledge has become partially lost and fragmented, at least in most cases, people don't have access to the complete teaching, and so they don't know this. They only know the beginning part, and they get hung up on that. Who was talking about that? Stephen, the other day, was talking about, in the car coming down here, we had this conversation about the Christians. And even the Christians that are capable of higher spiritual things, they usually don't achieve it because the church that they're in only emphasizes the beginning of the process. See, they're trying to increase the number of people in the church. So they give the beginning, and they make it very easy. Just come, just believe, just hear, and that's it. So, okay, it's very easy, and they can increase their numbers. But then after you're doing this for 6 months or a year, okay, so what's next? You know, what's the higher level? They're not giving that. Similarly, most of the people who are giving Vedic knowledge, you know, like TM and like that, they're yoga teachers and like that. They're focusing on the external physical practices that give you some limited material benefits quickly. You know, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, of course, quickly, very quickly, people get benefits from following the material side of the Vedic knowledge. But then they get stuck there and they don't go beyond that. See? The devotees, I mean, Drupad, this fellow is singing Drupad style, which is very beautiful. But like you say, there's a limit to how much joy or how much bliss you can get from this. But if you take Drupad style and then you use that to glorify Krishna's holy name, oh, it's so much nicer. But unfortunately, the people who are qualified to sing Drupad style through their musical knowledge, most of them are not devotees. And the people who are devotees, they're mostly not so educated musically. So what I would really like to see is some devotees get trained up in the Drupad style of singing, or any authorized Vedic school of singing, and then use that to sing very nice kirtans. Oh, that would be so pleasant. That would be so nice. So maybe we'll see that in the near future. Huh? So, are there any other questions?
There is a question from Tiago. Please accept my humble obeisances, Babaji. How can we be free from both attachment and detachment? In the sentence, one can enjoy the transcendental blissfulness of merging into the Brahman effulgence after being